Today we delve into a tale that began with a millionaire's arrogance, involved an ancient secret, and ended with the most quiet yet devastating revenge. Get ready to discover how one maid, risking everything, changed her destiny and shattered the world of a man who believed he owned everything. Picture this. New York City, a dazzling penthouse atop one of the tallest skyscrapers. This is the home of Mr. Julian Vance, a real estate tycoon whose name was synonymous with power, wealth, and sheer arrogance. Julian Vance was a man who believed that everything in his life had a price, and every human had their designated place. And the place of servants, in his view, was far below, unseen and unheard. It was in this world of silence that Elara Santos lived, a young woman from a humble background who had worked as Vance's housekeeper for 2 years. She was part of the invisible army that maintained the perfect order in his empire, a luxurious penthouse where every piece of art cost more than she could earn in a lifetime. Elara was quiet, diligent, and seemingly her existence was indistinguishable from the others on staff. She performed her duties meticulously, observing the lives of the rich and famous from the shadows, collecting their soiled laundry and empty champagne flutes. Mr. Vance rarely noticed her. To him, Elara was merely a function, one of many cogs in his perfectly tuned machine. He might pass her without a glance or issue a command without turning his head. His only interest was the flawless presentation of his home and the timely fulfillment of his whims. However, beneath this external apathy lay one unpleasant trait of Mr. Vance. He loved to humiliate. He enjoyed demonstrating his superiority, especially over those he deemed to be on the lower rungs of the social ladder. This often manifested in his tone, particularly when addressing his staff. He might make a scathing comment about an accent or a lack of common knowledge, always with a barely perceptible, arrogant smirk. Elara, like the others, grew accustomed to it. She learned to block out his words, building an invisible wall around her heart. She had a purpose: to earn enough money to pay for her young niece's urgent surgery back in her home country. This goal was her beacon, helping her endure all the humiliation. But one day that wall cracked. It all started with a seemingly innocent conversation. That day started like any other. Elara was cleaning Vance's library, a room filled with ancient folios and expensive antiques that Vance himself only used for display. He was sitting in his leather chair, speaking loudly on the phone with one of his business partners. Elara barely paid attention until she heard him declare with challenging bravado, "Of course, I'll find a translator, but I'm sure none of my staff can even understand a word of that Mandarin dialect." He then glanced at Elara, and a mischievous, mocking glint flickered in his eyes. Hanging up the phone, he said with a sneer, "Elara, do you speak any exotic languages? Perhaps Mandarin? My new partner insists on translating an old document, and I can't stand bothering with those bizarre scribbles. Of course, you don't know. Your family probably barely speaks its own dialect, do they?" He smirked, expecting her confusion. But Elara was not as simple as he thought. Her grandmother, originally from China, had immigrated years ago and taught Elara Mandarin, as well as calligraphy, since childhood. This was her small personal secret, which she guarded carefully. No one knew that Elara, this quiet maid, was fluent in one of the world's most complex languages. "I can try, sir," Elara replied softly, without raising her eyes. Vance burst out laughing, loudly, contemptuously. "You? Ha! Don't make me laugh, Elara. I don't think you could even read a menu in a Chinese restaurant, let alone some important business document. Never mind, I'll hire a professional translator. But it will cost me a fortune." His words hit Elara harder than any direct insult. It was a humiliation of her abilities, her heritage, her very humanity. In that moment she felt anger. But the anger was cold and calculated. Then came another blow. The next day, when Elara received her paycheck, she discovered it had been cut by $27,400, the exact sum she had painstakingly saved for her niece's surgery. The accompanying letter stated it was a fine for inefficiency and additional costs for translation services. Vance didn't even bother to speak to her. He simply took her money. This was the final straw. Elara's anger solidified into a firm resolve. She remembered her grandmother's words. Knowledge is not just power, Elara. It is also a weapon, if you know how to use it. And Elara knew. The stolen money was all the motivation Elara needed. The document Vance had dismissed her for was still lying on his mahogany desk in the library. It was a centuries-old scroll, bound with dark silk, which Vance believed was simply a historical curiosity related to a piece of land he was trying to acquire in Asia. He had dismissed its real value, assuming it was just poetic gibberish. That night, Elara stayed late. After all the staff had left and the apartment was silent, she returned to the library. She carefully took the scroll, her hands shaking not from fear, but from the immense gravity of what she was about to do. The script was indeed Mandarin, but it was an archaic form, a dialect rarely used in modern business. It was the exact dialect her grandmother had taught her. The irony was almost palpable. While Vance paid tens of thousands to a modern business translator who struggled with the nuances, Elara, the cleaning lady, could read it perfectly. She spent hours translating. The scroll wasn't a land deed. It wasn't a poem. It was a private contract of ownership for a vast, ancient estate. An estate that had been in Vance's current partner's family for generations. The contract stipulated a forgotten clause. If the land was to be sold to a non-descendant, like Vance, the seller had to first offer it to the Keeper of the Seals, a ceremonial title passed down through the partner's bloodline, tied to an old family ritual. But the most critical part, the part that was worth far more than $27,400, was a secret code within the margin. It detailed the exact location of a family relic hidden beneath the land, a repository of rare historical diamonds, secretly placed there to fund the family's flight during a political upheaval centuries ago. The text stated, "The true value lies not in the soil, but beneath the stone of the Whispering Dragon." Elara realized that Vance's partner, the owner of the scroll, didn't know the full meaning of the document. He believed it was just the final historical piece needed for the sale. Vance was about to buy the land cheaply, unaware of the treasure buried beneath it. Elara had two paths. She could expose the diamond secret to Vance, regain her money, and likely be fired. Or she could use the entire secret for her own silent justice. Elara chose the latter. Her revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be strategically surgical. She didn't want to just expose Vance. She wanted to destroy his deal and recover her money without him ever knowing she was the source of his downfall. The next morning, Elara executed her plan with the precision of a master chess player. She knew Vance was due to meet his partner, Mr. Chen, that afternoon to finalize the deal. While cleaning Vance's office, she knew Mr. Chen was staying in a suite at the Regent Towers nearby. Using her knowledge of the archaic text, Elara typed a cryptic two-sentence email in perfect classical Mandarin. The email contained no names, no dates, but only the most vital, easily verifiable clue from the ancient contract. The agreement is valid only through the Keeper of the Seals. Look to the Whispering Dragon Stone for true legacy. She found Mr. Chen's email address on a discarded business card. Then, using a public library Wi-Fi connection a few blocks away, leaving no digital trace back to the penthouse, she sent the anonymous email. The effect was instantaneous and explosive. Mr. Chen, a man of heritage, instantly recognized the reference to the Keeper of the Seals, an ancient title his grandfather had once mentioned. The email confirmed his deepest suspicion. There was something hidden in the scroll his family had passed down. He immediately halted the deal with Vance. When Vance, furious, demanded an explanation, Mr. Chen simply pointed to the fine print in the ancient document and demanded a 1,000% increase in the purchase price, citing newly discovered historical obligations that required immense capital to fulfill. Julian Vance was livid. His multi-million-dollar deal, his biggest acquisition of the year, was collapsing. He had no idea why. He suspected Mr. Chen had found another translator, but he couldn't prove it. But Elara's work wasn't done yet. She needed her money back, and she needed justice for all the times Vance had demeaned her. Vance was now obsessed. He spent days frantically going through every clause of the contract, hiring 3 separate, expensive expert translators. None of them found the hidden clause, because they were focused on the legal terms, not the archaic cultural references Elara had used. Elara knew the time was right for the final stroke. She had spent the last 2 years observing Julian Vance's habits. She knew he always had a backup key to his locked desk drawer, where he kept important papers, taped beneath a specific ornamental bowl on his display shelf. That evening, Vance was hosting a small, panicked dinner with his lawyers, trying to salvage the deal. Elara was serving wine. While in the dining room, she overheard Vance grumble to his head lawyer, "I need to send Chen that official refund for the deposit. It's $27,400. I'll transfer it tomorrow, but it feels like pouring money down the drain." That was her cue. While the lawyers were distracted, Elara subtly removed the backup key, accessed the drawer, and took the fine letter that documented the $27,400 deduction from her salary. She didn't take any money. She only needed the proof. The next morning, Mr. Vance walked into his office to find a plain sealed envelope on his desk, addressed to him. Inside was only one item, the fine letter he had issued to Elara. But Elara had added a single perfectly written line in Mandarin calligraphy at the bottom of the letter, using the same archaic style from the scroll. The line translated to, "The true cost of your arrogance is known to the unseen." Vance stared at the handwriting. He immediately recognized the distinct style, the same unique calligraphy used in the ancient scroll, a style none of his expert translators could mimic. In that single moment, the entire puzzle snapped into place for him. The arrogant dismissal in the library, the sudden collapse of the deal, the mysterious, perfectly scripted Mandarin message to Mr. Chen, the $27,400 refund he was about to make. The only person in his life who knew both the archaic language and the exact figure of his pettiness was the quiet woman he had mocked and stolen from. The shock was absolute. He hadn't just lost a deal, he had been outmaneuvered and utterly defeated by the person he least respected. His world of power, where money solved every problem, had been crushed by an intelligence he didn't even acknowledge. He never spoke of it. He refunded Elara's money immediately, adding a massive apologetic bonus, far more than the original $27,400. He couldn't risk her talking. Elara took the money, paid for her niece's surgery, and resigned a week later. She didn't gloat. She didn't expose him. Her revenge was complete. She took back what was hers, shattered his multi-million-dollar deal, and left him with the knowledge that the unseen was smarter and more powerful than him. Julian Vance learned the hard way that arrogance always comes with a crippling price tag. Elara's story is a powerful reminder that true wealth lies not in bank accounts, but in knowledge, resilience, and quiet dignity. She proved that the most dangerous opponent is the one you never see coming, the one you deem insignificant. Julian Vance's lesson was a costly one. Never underestimate the silent, the overlooked. They often hold the keys to a kingdom you don't even know exists. What do you think about Elara's revenge? Was it justified? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Whisper Lore for more stories of real voices and untold truths.